So Universal today just dropped a new reveal trailer for the Dark Universe, part of their Epic Universe theme park, one that I have been vocally criticizing on my channel here. And before I had even seen it, I was starting to get comments appearing on my videos about how it's aged like milk, and how obviously this is blowing it out of the water and this is proving me wrong. I'm not sure how people think that. This trailer proved everything I said was correct. I'm still right. I was right. Um, the rumors I was working off of were reliable. This video elaborated on stuff that Universal previously put out that I had reacted to. I was still right. I was right. Everything I said was correct, and everything I said was still correct. So, since some people seem to think that somehow this trailer proves me wrong, why don't we go through the trailer and I will tell you how this proves me right. So let's go.
Universal Epic Universe
Epic
is the
Universe,
next theme
okay,
park for
great.
Universal Orlando Resort
That's
and will
nice.
feature 5 astounding worlds that go beyond anything you've ever experienced before.
I will say this.
In Dark
First
Universe-
of all, okay, what I had said in a previous video, this isn't even marketed as Universal Monsters. They'll give a lot of lip service to it in this video, but it's not Universal Monsters Dark Universe, right? This is just Dark Universe. So they're not even putting the actual proper Universal Monsters brand on this thing. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but it's certainly symbolic of what's going on here. It's not Universal Monsters. It's this other thing under the guise of Universal Monsters.
You'll enter a foreboding world of unearthly legends and
Okay, I will give it this. Okay, it looks good. Like the physical location, the outdoor architecture looks fine. You know, if they had actually put the actual Universal monsters into this setting, it would have been okay.
monstrous experiments.
That's
To
the
me,
bell-
just nothing is more universal than the universal monsters.
True. So why didn't you put them in this attraction? Why didn't you put them in this land? You've got the like official bootleg versions. You got like these knockoff versions that I would expect a company that's not Universal to make. You know, the ones that wouldn't infringe on Universal's copyright. So if these characters are so iconic, which they are, I said before, previous video, that Dracula, Frankenstein, the Wolfman are Universal's Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. They are Universal's Mickey, Donald, and Goofy. Why didn't you put them in this land then? Why did you remake them into being not the characters that are so iconic?
The legacy of Universal Monsters is over 100 years old.
Getting
one
to
year,
go into the
correct.
dark universe and being able to be in a world in which those monsters are real
That would
is
be
something
nice.
that I have been looking forward to since I started with Epic Universe.
Then why didn't you do that? Why didn't you make these the characters from the movie and not these reimagined whatever they are?
We made a place for the monster lovers. We made a place for the thrill seekers. And
More so one than the other. This is not for fans of Universal Monsters. That is something that I said before, and something that I will say again here towards the end of the video about why they keep bringing up Universal Monster fans, even though this is clearly not for us.
way, this project, I've been waiting for it my whole life.
As our guests approach the portal, there's a spire that's crackling with electricity. This is how the dark energy is gathered.
And we're gonna see the electricity pulsating through the land and connecting at the top of this manor.
Fine.
To a new
As a
world
story setting.
of gods and monsters.
Dark Universe is inspired by all the Universal Monster films.
Inspired by, not based on. That is an important distinction to make there. I don't know if that was intentionally careful wording, but yeah, inspired by, not based on.
In our world, all the Universal Monster stories have happened, and Darkmoor is the result of that. It's the consequence.
Every inch
Okay, something that, and they elaborate on this later in the video, that this in continuity, it takes place after the original movies. Like, okay, if you're gonna go that route, but then still, why not make them the monsters from the movies then? If this is supposed to take place in the same world and it takes place in continuity after the classic monster films, then why not have the classic monsters in them? Why these reimagined versions?
of Dark Universe tells a story. You can believe that monsters are real and it's all happening right here.
There are layers of intenseness, of scariness in Dark Universe.
We kind of toe that line of being family friendly, but we can also be PG-13.
Which again, like, I don't have complaints about this part. Like, these theoretical ideas they're talking about are fine. It's just what they actually do with it isn't Universal Monsters.
Roaming the land, we have some monsters that kind of move around, and then some other characters that...
Okay, that actually looks more like Frankenstein and the Bride of Frankenstein than what's in the ride and what's been in the material so far. So what are you're gonna have, like, these versions of the classic monsters, like, that look like the classic monsters roaming around, but then in the actual attractions they're like these official bootleg versions that don't look like them. Not sure how that works out in terms of sort of show and presentation, of consistency in that presentation.
Help connect you to these stories. You can actually have yourself made up to look like a monster, and then...
Okay, I like that they did a Monsters Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique. That is actually a fine idea, and hilarious, and great, perfect, good. That's a good idea.
Go out into a monster world.
Das Steakhouse is a restaurant that's operated by the familiars of vampires.
It's centered around the story of Dracula
Vampire
and
steakhouse, every
vampires
steak is served
themselves.
rare.
As you enter as a guest, you're going to get fed, and you might be scoped out by vampires.
We will have steaks on steaks.
We're creating entertainment for
Wah, wah, wah.
families, and we're creating entertainment for those who want to conquer their fears.
All that stuff seems fine. I'll give it credit. That stuff seems fine. And the Monster Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique is fine. The steakhouse is a little cheesy. As like a pun. It's like an Abbott and Costello type pun. That's all fine. That's not what I have issues with.
Curse of the Werewolf follows the same story arc
Again.
as our classic film, The Wolfman.
Then why didn't you name it Curse of the Wolfman? Like, it's not even on brand. Curse of the Werewolf is not Curse of the Wolfman, even though you own the Wolfman. So, Curse of the Werewolf is a Hammer film. It's such an obvious thing that it's like, okay, if you missed that, like, that had to have been deliberate that you missed that, which means this isn't the Wolfman then. Like, it's purposefully not the Wolfman because you didn't name it the thing that you have trademarked.
It takes place in an area that's really been taken over and inhabited by our mystics.
And you see here the new Maleva.
Okay, so we've got new sexy Maleva. Now I get, okay, if this is taking place in continuity after the previous movies, and in fact in like the modern day, okay, you need a new Maleva. But here's the thing. First of all, placing it in the modern day is dumb. I'll go on about that later. But like, it mattered symbolically that Maleva was old. All right, I know you want to have like the sexy hip Maleva of the misfits because you can't say gypsies. It mattered that she was old because she was an elder keeper of traditions, right? The contrast in the story, in the movie The Wolfman, is that you have sort of the modern world of modern science that doesn't believe in the old ways and old traditions and old superstitions. But then you have these people on the edge of society, right? On the edge of modernity. You have these gypsies who are closer to that darkened forest, and they know what's in there that modern science has forgotten about, and modern civilization has forgotten about. And they act as like this bulwark against these things of darkness that modern civilization has forgotten about. And so it matters that Maleva is old, because that emphasizes that these are the old traditions, the old ways, the old superstitions that end up being true. And that, you know, these are the people who are guarding that very thin boundary, that very thin border between those ancient superstitions, the things that we have to be careful against, to guard against, and modern civilization. So having young, sexy, hot topic Maleva, kind of undermines that whole point. And okay, that would be lost on your average theme park goer. Fine, but it's not lost on the actual fans of this stuff. And if you're going to keep bringing up the fans, then you might want to like work with what the fans know about the franchises, because the casuals doesn't matter either way. And I'll again talk about that
And
later.
Maleva gives you bad news that you bear the curse of the werewolf.
You
You're
are the-
immediately put
are
in the
werewolf,
wagon
so
and
you're
sent
on the
out
wolf.
into the woods. This is an incredibly thrilling,
it's a roller
family-friendly spinning coaster.
It's absolutely
It's a
going to be
roller coaster
fun.
that spins.
I can't wait.
So it's a roller coaster that spins. It's not like a themed attraction, right? And this is like the one of the consistent disappointing things about Universal is that like Disney heretofore, I mean, we can criticize Disney today, but up to this point, Disney has been really good about like creating themes and ride systems that work together. That the ride system girds the story and vice versa. And the themed experience of it, which is why you get so many different themed experiences in a Disney park. It's not just roller coasters. There's like three roller coasters in Disneyland. Big Thunder Mountain, Space Mountain, and the Matterhorn. But then what else is there? Well, there's animatronic shows, there's boat rides, there's Omnimover carts, there's sort of more classical ghost train carts. There's an actual cruise. There's simulator rides. There's all sorts of different experiences that you can have that support the story and that are supported by the story. Whereas this, it's like it's a roller coaster with a fig leaf of you've got the curse of the werewolf. And what is the curse of the werewolf? Well, apparently it's like being on a spinning roller coaster because it's all like a werewolf running through the forest. Like that's lame. That's not an imaginative and creative application of technology and theme design. That's a roller coaster with an idea slapped on it. Yeah.
The Burning Windmill is a classic part of Universal Monster lore. And so when we created the Dark Universe, we knew that we had to create a burning windmill.
That is like the only part of this that's consistent with the classic monsters, is that the windmill burns, which is fine, which is great. That's fine. Again, how the land looks is fine, and the fact the windmill burns is great. It's just like that. That's all there is. Nothing else is consistent with the actual classic monsters.
There's the windmill right in front of you, and suddenly it bursts into flames.
Yeah, great. Good. Sure.
Inside the burning blade is a wonderful little tavern, and this is the place where the
Down in the
hounds hang
basement
out.
of the
The
windmill that's
hounds
burning.
are the monster hunters. You'll hear some tales, and their trophies are scattered.
So now we're adding the story element in here that has nothing to do with the classic monsters. If they at least were to make reference to the classic monster hunters of like the heroes, right, of the classic films, Van Helsing and Mueller and Waldman and Frank and all those characters, then that would be at least a nice callback. But now we've got like this whole other thing going on that is smacks of like a modern Dungeons and Dragons campaign and nothing like classic monsters.
About.
And now we get to the big ride, which is just, again, the equivalent ride. This is Harry Potter and the Forbidden
Monsters Unchained is going to be the most amazing monster ride ever built.
We've never opened these doors to Frankenstein Manor.
The thrills of the attraction, the chance to meet all of our classic monsters.
But it's not the classic monsters. That's the thing. That's the part that's got my panties in a bunch. These aren't the classic monsters. You've emphasized over and over again, these aren't them. These are reimagined versions for modern audiences, whatever. That wasn't Boris Karloff's Frankenstein. This isn't Lon Chaney's Wolfman. And this Hot Topic employee coming up here is not the Bela Lugosi Dracula. Right? These aren't the classic monsters.
In a new and exciting way.
Inside Monsters Unchained, the Frankenstein experiment, you're going to see things that defy what you know of as a theme park attraction.
There's a new resident in Manor, and her name's Victoria Frankenstein.
Victoria Frankenstein is the great-great-granddaughter of Henry Frankenstein. You don't know if...
Okay, so, I mean, nice, good call on having a partial Colin Clive portrait in there. Dr. Victoria Frankenstein, the great-great-granddaughter of Henry Frankenstein. Okay, so in continuity, this is after the movies. She's not the race and gender swapped Dr. Frankenstein. She's in continuity the great-great-granddaughter, which is still just a race and gender swap by another name. So you guys who want to conscript us into your whole culture war against wokeness, this is the woke reimagining. Okay, this isn't Universal as the great white hope against Disney. This is Universal doing the woke race and gender swap. Okay. So you could say, no, this isn't supposed to be the classic monsters. This is the modernized version. This takes place in the modern day, more or less, right? Wherever they decide to place Henry Frankenstein in the past. This is more or less supposed to be the modern day-ish, something like that. But that's not a setting that I want to go to with the monsters. The setting I want to go to with the monsters is that classic 1930s, that sort of timeless, eternal 1930s. Right? Like Universal Monsters is this weird thing with continuity when you actually watch the movies, where they keep retconning the previous ones. Every movie takes place in more or less in the year it was made. So Frankenstein takes place like 1931. Whatever. But every subsequent movie retcons that to be further in the past. In fact, Henry Frankenstein's name keeps changing to sound older with each subsequent movie. So like by Ghost of Frankenstein, Henry Frankenstein has become Heinrich von Frankenstein because it sounds more old-timey, sounds more distant in the past, because these movies keep taking place in the year they were made, but then it's like generations and decades apart. You really see this with like the Karis Mummy series. The first Karis Mummy movie takes place like 1942. The second movie takes place like 30 years later in 1943. Then like a couple years later, the third one taking place a year later. And then the last one takes place another like 20 years after that in like 1945. Like it's, they keep retconning that and backdating it, because there's no real set continuity. The result though is that these movies weren't meant to be seen like on Blu-ray one after the other. These were like meant to be seen as like B movies a year or two apart, where you wouldn't remember everything from the last one. But the effect that it has in retrospect is that it has this like sort of air of timeless 1930s, 1940s, timeless golden age of Hollywood sort of setting. You can't pin a date on it because the movies themselves have no date. They keep retconning that all over the place. It's just like this timeless 1930s. And that's the setting I'd want to go to, right? I'd want to go into that time of that 1930s, 1940s golden age of Hollywood, Eastern European horror movie village. Which, like, in parts they're kind of trying to, but then they have to add this story in here. The story that they're going to have worked out here, they're going to talk about, is that Dr. Victoria Frankenstein is going to she's trying to control the monsters. That's a fine story. Just make it Dr. Frankenstein, like the real one, Colin Clive. Just have it be Dr. Frankenstein versus Dracula, vying for control of the monsters. That'd be fine, and then put it in a dark ride, not a kook arm ride, not a vomit machine whipping you around everywhere. Just make it a nice, solid dark ride, like the Haunted Mansion, which is something Universal doesn't even have. You want to copy Disney? Well, no, I'm saying that no, there is no franchise that more wants to have a slow-moving, spooky dark ride than Universal Monsters. Like, that is a franchise. These slow 1930s horror movies want a slow moving, like Omnimover style dark ride. That story and that ride system are perfect for each other. And instead we're getting this like Kuka arm whipping us around because it worked with Harry Potter, so let's do it with this one. Like, okay. Lame.
Dr. Victoria is good or bad, but she does want to bring good to the name Frankenstein again.
Every night, inside the manor, Victoria is conducting these experiments.
You're going to see that she's captured all of the Universal monsters and wanting to control them. Dracula's got other plans.
Monsters Unchained has the most technologically advanced animated figures.
I wonder if that is CGI, like, from the ride. So we're going to have this, like, rubbery-looking plastic CGI characters in this ride
that have ever been built. They are visceral, they are powerful, they are intense.
Animatronics.
The technology we are using is cutting edge.
Again with the weird rubbery like CGI characters from like 20 years ago.
Literally use every technology I could possibly think of, and then we realized we needed to invent new technology. Imagine what could happen in a Monsters ride when there's a sense of touch. You'll literally be able to feel characters breathing.
You want to ride this ride as almost a badge of honor that I can do one of the scariest rides that we've created.
We've created some of the most amazing attractions of all time.
A roller coaster and a Kuka arm ride, which you've already done. Okay.
And we're raising the bar again.
I think this universe is going to make the next generation fall in love with the monsters.
No, and I'll tell you why. First of all, you're not introducing them to the monsters. You are making these like official bootleg knockoff versions of them. Secondly, in so doing, you are telling these audiences that the old ones are lame and need to be updated. Optimistically, we can hope that, you know, maybe you'll goose the sales of those Blu-ray sets, and that this will be a gateway for some people to look into the classic movies. That would be great, and that is the silver lining. That is a very optimistic way of looking at it. But I mean, you've essentially said that you're making this for casuals who don't know the monsters and don't care about the monsters, so you're just reimagining it for them for some reason, even though you don't have to, because it doesn't matter either way. Then if they really don't care that much, it doesn't matter if it's the classic monsters or the updated versions. And you're communicating to them that these old movies are lame and need to be updated and reimagined, and you're attaching these like super like adrenaline rush exciting thrill rides, which are not what those classic movies are like. Those classic movies were slow burn, much more subtle, spooky movies, as opposed to like thrill ride scary movies. So there's this total dissonance between what you're doing here and what these movies actually are.
To me, Dark Universe is about acceptance. A lot of these monsters, they're the outsiders. They're the ones that are looking for a connection. Dark Universe is for everybody.
So again, people who were complaining and hoping that Universal was gonna squash Disney, you know, woke DEI Disney, that Universal was gonna, what was that? What was that? That was that discussion about like, oh, the monsters are queer, and this is all about accepting them and stuff, which is like, okay, there are those themes in there of the monsters as the outsiders. You know, Frankenstein, most famously, is about that. And you have some of those aspects, you know, Larry Talbot trying to deal with this curse and being an outsider from society and stuff like that. But more so than diversity, inclusion, and equity, it's good versus evil. And you know, there's this element of tragedy with the monsters. But there's no mistake that these are dangerous creatures from the pits of hell, you know. Larry Talbot is vexed by this, not because he's yearning for acceptance of his werewolf identity. He's in the closet about his werewolf identity. It's that the werewolf identity is a monstrous killing machine from hell, and he's stuck turning into that, and he wants release from that. That's that theme there. It's not a theme of acceptance and inclusion. It's a theme of good versus evil, at war within one man. You know, the Frankenstein monster. Again, like I mean, that's a more complicated one than say Dracula, which is clearly a fiend from the pit of hell. But Dracula's daughter is that, like, you know, she is the monster who wants release from being a monster, right? It's not about her finding inclusive acceptance for her vampiric self. It's about her wanting release from that curse. Son of Dracula has one of the most transcendent endings in the whole Universal series, because it's a about very starkly about resisting temptation and in the fight between good and evil. The Mummy is tragic. I've done a whole video on how the Mummy is a tragic figure who is a victim of who himself is a victim of his own disordered obsession with Ankhsenamen. It's not just Ankhsenamen and Helen Grosvenor who are victims. It's also Imhotep himself. But he's still a monstrous undead creature whose obsession has turned violent and terrifying. And it's not about acceptance and inclusion. So, like, what? This Culture Warriors, this is Universal doing the woke version of the monsters. This is not Universal rejecting DEI Disney stuff. This is Universal doing their own version of it with what they got. And you just heard him talk about it right there.
It's a place where these iconic stories and characters come to life, and for the first time ever, you are a part of it. It's the place that you've been waiting for almost 100 years.
No, it is not. Okay? So, here's the thing. This has, like, no buzz with Universal Monster fans. If you go to Universal Monster fan communities, there's very little discussion about this. You know, I mentioned previously that, like, you know, there's like a Universal Monsters channel on, like, Peacock or Roku or something like that. And, like, every week somebody's bringing it up. Like, did you know? Like, yeah, we know. Nobody's talking about this. When it does come up, like the one time, everyone's just trashing on it. Because we don't want reimagined versions of the monsters we've been waiting for 100 years. We want the monsters we've been waiting for 100 years. We want Bela Lugosi's Dracula. We want Lon Chaney's Wolfman. We want Boris Karloff's Frankenstein monster. That's what we want. This is not what this is. So the audacity of saying that this is what you've been waiting for. So here's what I think is going on. This is clearly not made for us. This is not made for Universal Monster fans because it's not the Universal Monsters. It's not even branded Universal Monsters. So why do they keep trying to tell us this is what we've been waiting for? Well, I mean, you could just say, oh, it's just shilling. It's just the brand shilling. Okay, fine. I think it's deeper than that. I think it's not to us they're saying this. I think it's to the casual fans. It's to the theme park casuals that they're saying this. And they're trying to convince those people that we are fully on board with this. This is the real deal. This is Universal Monsters, what we've been waiting for. And so I get these comments on my videos from people who are not Universal Monster fans telling me, who is a Universal Monster fan, that this is what I've been waiting for, when I'm saying, no, it's not. Right? They're trying to convince those people that this is what people like me want, so that it gives an air of legitimacy. So they're using the fans to give this legitimacy to casuals, to just the theme park goers, to give it legitimacy, even though amongst ourselves we're saying it doesn't have any legitimacy, that this is not the Universal Monsters. So them saying this is just a sales pitch. This is what the actual fans have been waiting for. So you, as a casual who's just into theme parks, you can rest assured this is legitimate. This is the real thing, because those fans totally love it, even though we're over here saying, no, we don't love this. This is obviously not for us. This is marketing pitch right here. There we go.
The monsters are indeed alive, and we can't wait to see your reactions as you come face to face with all of them at Universal Epic Universe.
I think you can wait to see my reaction. Not that I've really given you a chance to not see it. Yeah, like, I don't know who thinks that this somehow proves me wrong. Like, this video has proven everything I've said correct. This has proven everything I said. I was right. I am still right. And I've just explained to you how I'm right in detail. This is not giving fans what they want. This is reimagined versions of the monsters. This is, for you culture warriors, the woke reimagining of the Universal Monsters. It's not using ride systems that support the story and the themes of the Universal Monsters. It's race and gender swaps that completely miss the point. It's not even properly branded. It's not Curse of the Wolfman, it's Curse of the Werewolf, it's not Universal Monsters Dark Universe, it's just Dark Universe. This is not for the fans of Universal Monsters. And you know, if you enjoy it and you want to go and you want to just ride generic Frankenstein ride, generic werewolf ride, roller coaster, fine, be my guest. Just don't tell me that this is for me and that my videos have aged like milk, because I was completely right about everything. And I still am right. So cope with that. If you just enjoy it as a casual random theme park goer, fine, whatever. But then that's the tragedy of it, is that if it matters so little to you, why not make them the classic monsters? Why not make them what people like me have wanted and have been waiting for 100 years? And then, because it doesn't matter to you. It doesn't matter if it's Bela Lugosi Dracula or Hot Topic Dracula, because either way, whatever, you'll still ride it. And if it was the Bela Lugosi Dracula, then it would have legitimacy among the fans, and would be what we've been waiting for 100 years, and we'd all be booking trips to Florida, and we'd all be talking about this, and none of those things are happening. It's again, it's one of those things like they're updating it for a modern audience by ignoring the audience that loves the thing and changing it for no reason, because it doesn't matter to the people who don't love it. They'll ride the stupid roller coaster either way. It's just a sad missed opportunity is really what all this is. And of course it's going to be successful among theme park fans, and they're going to crow about how great it is and how it totally transcends woke Disney and whatever else, even though this is exactly the same thing. But it's just like, stop telling us then that this is what we've been waiting for and how awesome this thing is, because it's not. Just deal with that. It's just a corporation inexplicably avoiding their own brand, which is on point for Universal, because Universal has never in that 100 years known how to properly market and use the monsters. So that much at least is on brand for them.